Hello, I'm Dr. Basil Considine. I'm here from the ACU Online Writing Center, and this is our introduction to CONR resources. If you're a new student in our conflict resolution, conflict management program, welcome. We are happy to have you at ACU, and this webinar is about telling you some of the special things that we have developed for your program. At the Writing Center, we work with just about every online program at ASU right now, but there are some that we have particular histories with going back to when I first started at ASU in 2018. And so we've been able to work with faculty and answer requests from students such as yourselves to develop special resources, which we'll be talking about in a moment. But first, a little bit about the Online Writing Center. If you are new to the Online Writing Center, we have a whole series of free services that we offer to students such as yourselves. There are webinars such as this. There are resources we've developed like course paper templates, in some cases sample papers that we've collected from students. And also we offer consultations where you can get feedback on your writing through a variety of modes. Now, in our Introduction to the Writing Center webinar, we go into full detail on the different options you have for getting feedback, but we'll talk through these in a moment. We have basically a set of internal options where you can work with our writing experts who have access to and develop expertise in your courses to be able to help point some things out and to compare the assignment instructions with your drafts. And we also have some external resources where if our schedule doesn't happen to fit your own demands, where you can go and use these resources is to get feedback that is important for you on a schedule that works. More on that in a little bit. But if you're coming to the Writing Center for writing feedback, if it's just a quick question, oh, how do I format this in APA style? Is this a X? It's something that might get answered in less than 10 minutes, just go ahead and send us an email at onlinewritingcenter@acu.edu. I answer lots of those questions all the time, and we're certainly happy to do that. There are a lot of little clarifications, a lot of pointing to specific resources, not a problem. Now, if you have a question that is more the kind of thing that would benefit from an extended review, getting detailed feedback, something more than 10 minutes, then we would either just sign you up for or suggest that you sign up for an appointment. And those appointments come in two basic types. You can sign up for a real-time appointment, which we do via phone or Zoom. And so you can ask your questions back and forth and get your feedback in real time, or an asynchronous or non-real-time appointment. For an asynchronous appointment, you sign up for a spot on the schedule, and by the time it rolls around, you upload a copy of your draft, whatever it is, whatever state, and any special requests if you have them. And we look at it and we send you feedback, generally within 24 hours. If you're requesting feedback on a Sunday evening or a Monday morning, we'll get back to you faster than that because we want you to have our feedback at the very latest by midday on Monday, so you have time to revise your draft before you have to submit it. So let's talk about some of the things that we have at the Writing Center. We'll go over scheduling appointments in a moment, but our main two objectives today are going to be to understand the CONR webinar series that we have, which is a major support network that we've developed, a whole series of different webinars that tie in with different CONR assignments and how you would navigate those and find those, and also our ACU course paper template that I have developed. So let us first go ahead and take a look at a course website. Now, I've pulled up here the website for CONR 604, which many of you are enrolled in right now. And I'm looking at the modules page. And so if I go to the objectives for module 1, you'll see we have, okay, students will examine their personal definition of and experience with mediation. Students will examine their personal definition of conflict. Students will demonstrate an understanding of the balance of justice and mercy and the role they play in creating peace. Okay, that sounds good so far. But when it comes to your assignment, what does that mean that you have to do? Well, if we go ahead and look at this, we see that there's a discussion board. That's something that students usually don't have trouble with. We have the tribunal team discussion and the verdict, so more discussion. And we have a reflection paper. So let's take a look at that reflection paper and what that's asking. So this is telling you, write a reflection paper addressing each of the following prompts with a subheading for each. And we see that you're supposed to describe a serious conflict which you are personally involved in, to summarize that, to write with the conflict in mind, making reference to the reading, and reflect on your experience doing that discussion board activity, and then finish with a conclusion. And with that, you're supposed to also include a cover page with certain information, word count, which, by the way, 250 words is approximately one double-spaced page of content. So we're looking here at roughly 7 to 8 pages of content, plus the title page or cover page, plus the references page. So that is a fair bit of writing. You want to make sure that you are doing this according to this order, so it's clear that you're doing all those things. And if we look at the rubric, it tells us concretely you should be responding to each of the 9 questions in the Beer and Packard reading. Okay. Now, perhaps this isn't your entry point. Perhaps you're taking the CONR 606 course, the Theory 1, or perhaps you are enrolled in CONR 603 this term. That's fine. What I'm going to suggest next will be the same, because it's going to be the same steps to access the things that we're talking about, just slightly different resources. So if we go to the online writing services site, the Online Writing Center website, and on these drop-down menus, you see different options. Now, something that we bring to you, we'll call that a service. So a tutoring appointment to get feedback on your draft is a service. A writing webinar is also a service. So if we look at the writing webinars page under services, you can see that we have a schedule of all the upcoming webinars for whatever term we're in. But if we scroll down past that, there are 2 things of interest. One is this tab guide, we'll come back to that. And the other is a alphabetical listing of all the past webinars that we've had. Now, the alphabetical one is great if you know what you're looking for if you're doing a word search. But I bet that most of you are looking for resources that relate to courses you are taking. And that's where this tabbed guide comes in. And you can see that this is sorted by the program code. So for conflict resolution or conflict management, let's go over to CONR. And you can see that starting with CONR 602, we have a set of related webinars, starting with the general ones like this welcome and paragraph writing in APA, and then sorted by the course number. So we have all these webinars that tie in with CONR 603, and you can see, with the week 4 assignment, with the week 6 assignment, CONR 604, starting with the week 1 assignment. So say you're enrolled in CONR 604. And so we're looking at this M1 assignment 3, the reflection paper. Well, it turns out that we have a webinar that ties directly in this, where we discuss that specific assignment and talk you through the process of taking the instructions and using those instructions to plan out your organization of the paper, your outline, and how to do the APA heading formatting that the instructions are asking you to do. That is this instruction here, by the way, to include a subheading for each prompt. And there are particular ways that that's supposed to look in APA style, and we walk through all of those. Now, a suggestion that I have for all students who are taking a class at ACU, check to see if we have tie-ins with your course And if so, add any of those tie-ins to your calendar. So when you reach that week that you watch the video, and then you can be thinking about what you have to do before you do the reading for that particular week or that particular module. So if we look at this one here, we see that we have the course, a specific assignment, the course number, the name of the assignment, and it's sorted by the order within the course. So here we have week 1, here we have week 2. If we keep going, we see, okay, we also have a week 4 webinar as well. And for many of these courses where we've supported it for a long time, we've gone through and we've made webinars based on key assignments. Sometimes you'll be doing much the same in the next one. So it's a assignment that historically students have excelled at, and so have not requested a particular supporting material. So you won't see this for every single assignment, but when you're being asked to write a new type of paper, so in this case, this was the first time you'd be asked to write a reflection paper. And in this case, this is the first time you'd be asked to write a synthesis paper. And so we introduced that genre of writing, particular expectations, how to make it clear that you are doing those things. And so in the week 4, yes, it is a reflection, but there's also a lot of applying things and using different sources of data that is different from what you've been asked to do in the previous weeks, which is why we have created a webinar specifically on that. So let's take a look now at the material for CONR 606, which is the Theory 1 course. So this is a class where people are asked to do a lot of writing where you are referring to specific aspects of how other people have conceptualized and shaped things and organized these into theories. So if we look at the objectives for Module 1, you'll see that we have some tasks. Okay, introduce yourself to the class by video, not a problem. That's something students usually do very quickly, no problem. Students will create a personal definition of communication. Okay, so you're writing about your own thoughts and compare a secular and biblical view of communication. Two different types of thinking and conceptualizing the world. Okay, so let's take a look at what the week 1 assignments are. So you've got a discussion board here. That's not something that people tend to have any trouble with. My thoughts on communication. So let's take a look at that assignment here. And so we see that there is some reflection based on the course materials that you are reviewing this week. And so using the critiques from the discussion board and the information in the video, state your own new or revised definition of communication. So this is talking about information that you formulated, your personal definition of communication. And then you're going to be writing about it and critically analyzing it. There's a fair amount of stuff that you're being asked to do in this paper, but the outline gives you a logical order for doing so. And if we scroll down here, we see the length of the paper is fairly modest. It's roughly 4 pages, 1,000 words, plus the cover or title page and the references. And so we see that if you're going to do all of these things and only take 4 pages, you want to make sure that you stay on task and you do all the things that you're asked first and then see, is there any available space left? Because if you just started writing and you took up 6 pages, that will be an awful lot of cutting. But if you start with doing exactly what you're asked to do, what you have to do, what you're being graded on having in this paper, then it'll be much more concise. And to help you out with this, because this is a different type of writing than you've been asked to do before if you took 604 before this, well, if we scroll down here to 606, you'll see that we do have a tie-in webinar here. This is the conflict management, writing about your thoughts. So you can look at this and say, okay, we're in week 0 now. Well, here is a assignment I have to do. Let me watch this webinar. Let me work on creating a starting outline and then do my reading, knowing that there's certain points in that outline where I'm going to be asked to refer to specific types of information, and thus I want to be able to cite the specific reading that aligns with that. Now, you are also allowed to use sources from previous courses. So this is one of those things where if you're looking at the outline and you're saying, okay, I read something like that, but it's not in a specific course, you are allowed to use it. And to keep track of that, if you start with the outline, if you start with the, I need a source that does this, and you're like, well, let me go back to my 604 stuff. Here's that thing I want to use. That's a lot easier when you have the outline list of requirements before you. And you can see that film analysis is a theme in several assignments. So we have a general webinar on film analysis papers. We have a related one as well that discusses it within the context of multiple courses. And for that, we have the final analysis, which requires that you apply more than one theory. So more challenging, more complex than before. So we've developed a webinar specifically for that. And you can continue through the CONR sequence and see we have tie-in webinars for 610, for 617, 622, 628, 630, and 638. So this is something where we have a whole family of resources devoted to this. If you just joined us, so we've been talking so far about the different resources that we have available specifically for CONR students. And if you go to the Writing Center website and you select on the drop-down menu here, if you select Services Writing Webinars, you will see at the top there is our chronological list of upcoming webinars for this term. But also, if you scroll down further, you'll reach this tabbed guide here, where you can select a particular program, in this case, CONR, and see what webinars we have that align with your specific course. So for example, if you were enrolled in, say, CONR 606, and you're looking at your week 1, assignment 1, the My Thoughts on Communication paper, we can go ahead, now that we've selected CONR, scroll down to CONR, in this case, CONR 606, and see, oh, yes, there is a webinar that ties in directly with that. And so you could watch that immediately or mark your calendar saying, all right, on day 1 of week 1, I want to watch that. So I have that on my mind, that I've gone ahead and I've looked at the assignment instructions and followed the webinar guide for how to create a starting outline for my paper before I go and do the reading for the assignment, before I start doing the discussion. So I have a blueprint including requirements of, oh, here are things that I need to be writing about. Here are the kinds of sources that I'm going to need to be using for that. And so you can start placing those within your outline as you do the reading or as you do the reflection, especially because in this case, there's a wide variety of different sources that you are going to be using. And you also have the option of using materials from previous courses. Now, one of the elements that you'll see in all of these assignments, whichever course you're enrolled in the program, is that it does require that you be writing in APA style. And we could talk about things at great length here because we do in fact have multiple webinars on different aspects of APA style, including a introduction to APA style webinar that is coming up this term. That is on Tuesday, the 18th at 6 p.m., Intro to APA 7th edition. And I strongly recommend it if you are a new student and you're new to APA or new to APA 7th edition in particular. We also have recordings of this. So as I mentioned earlier, so at the top of the webinars page, we have our chronological guide, our calendar of upcoming webinars. In the middle, we have our tabbed guide where you can see how they are sorted by program, but there's also an alphabetical list. So if I wanted to just search for APA, in this case, APA 7th edition, it will show me, oh, yes, there are video recordings I can access immediately. There's slide decks that I can download of past offerings of this webinar. So for something like Intro to APA 7th that we do every term, you can watch that on demand anytime you want. Now, if you'd rather ask questions in person, by all means, come to our live webinar. And for a lot of students, they are more active participants and attendees and remember things better if they're watching it live and able to ask questions. So if that describes you, I do recommend the live one. But if you are wanting to get a head start and you're a strong self-directed learner, by all means, watch the recording. These are always shaped by student questions. So if you have questions you want to pose, by all means, bring them to the live webinar, but you can also email us at onlinewritingcenter@acu.edu, and we're happy to answer specific APA questions that you have. And you can request feedback specifically on the APA style when submitting a draft to us for review. All right, so let's talk about that APA formatting, because there is a particular resource that we have developed to help with this. So if you go to the Online Writing Center website, and let's start at the homepage here. If you go to Resources APA 7, we'll find that right at the top, there's this APA course paper template that you can download that does a lot of the formatting for you. And we have certain variations on that that are developed for particular programs or particular assignments or things like writing a doctoral dissertation, as well as various resources, answers to common questions, a guide you can download and print out, so on and so forth. But while we're up here, so the webinars are listed under services writing webinars because that's something we offer as a live service every term. But for resources, besides APA style, you might also be interested in the sample papers that we have. Now, what sample papers we have will vary based on the program, but a lot of people just like to be able to look at something and say, okay, this is what a paper looks like. And so you might go and say, oh, all right, so I'm enrolled in this class. Can I see what a paper looks like? Now, in this case, let's go ahead and look at the sample paper for CONR 602 assignment 4. So if I go ahead and open this up, so it is a course paper, and as a course paper, it has certain information that is whatever the student wrote. So there may be things that you would write differently, or that if I was doing it, I might format it differently. But we see they start out the reflection, they are referring to these different sources, and they have here at the start, this is their title page. This is the body of their paper. They've included illustration they made, a reflection, and at the end, there is this references page here. Now, looking at this, I can see, if I was writing this, there'd be a few things that are different. I can, as a in-house expert on APA style, I can look at this and see, okay, here's some things that would correct there. But the point of these sample papers is to give you an introduction to what some of your classmates have done. So if you are feeling, well, I'm not even sure what this should look like or where to begin, you have a point of reference. Will it be perfect? No, but rarely is writing entirely perfect. The idea is to get an idea of how to shape things, if that is something that is helpful to you. So now if we look at this, you'll see that besides those 3 courses, you can also look and see samples of literature reviews and other things that you might be asked to do further on in your studies. And if you're just looking for familiarizing your eyes with how things are formatted in APA style, then you might go ahead and say, all right, well, I want to look at things from other programs just to get an idea of how things look. And that's totally fine. These are available. It's not limited to looking at, say, just sample papers from your program. So at this point, I'm just going to ask if you have any questions or things that you're especially interested in seeing us talk about or explain. Please go ahead and write your question in the chat, or you can send it to me as a private message. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to talk a little bit about that APA course paper template. And for that, we're going back to the Writing Center website and resources APA 7. Now, if you can see that there's this course paper template that I can download, and also this video to explain how the template styles work. But for the sake of our understanding and edification here, I'm going to go ahead and download a copy of the template, and then I'm going to refer to how I would go about doing some of the things asked in one of these assignments here. And we're going to specifically look at the CONR 6004 M1 assignment 3, because that does specifically ask that you have a heading for each prompt. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to grab a copy of the main assignment instructions, and I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste them into the template so we can be looking at just one screen. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen in Microsoft Word, and please let me know when you can see that. So I have here the course paper template open, and you'll see that there are various instructions on the side. We don't need this particular view right now. And usually what happens the first time or two that people are using the template, they read through the instructions, and then you say, okay, I want to get rid of those and have a clean copy. And here's how to do that easily. So at the top, you have these options: home, insert, review, etc. So this is what Microsoft Word calls the ribbon. So we start out in the home area, the ribbon, and if we select review, I can go ahead and select to delete all comments in document. And now they're gone. They're all deleted, and I can start filling things in here. We'll discuss the title in a moment, but if your paper doesn't specifically say you need an abstract, then you don't need one. So we can just go ahead and delete this entirely. And then you can see here that we have some placeholder text and headings to show you how that would look. We're going to take out those placeholders here. And I'm going to paste in the assignment instructions. And the first thing that you'll notice just by looking at it, this doesn't quite match what we were looking at before. For one thing, it's not double spaced. And so when you're pasting things in, look for this clipboard and select Match Destination Formatting. And you'll see that now things like the font, the spacing, they just look right. Because one of the requirements for APA 7th edition is that your paper be double spaced. So we want it to be starting that way. Now, here we have the paper specifications, and we're not going to be looking at this terribly much, but there is this specific thing for the title or cover page to have the word count. Now, the word count isn't something that is required by APA style itself. This is what we call a house rule. So for a house rule, we could just add here and say word count : and then have that listed. Now for this rest, we're looking at this, and I wanted to specifically show you what the headings would look like, because there's this instruction here: include a subheading for each prompt. And so we can go here and type, okay, a serious conflict in which I'm personally involved in, my conflict. That'll be the name of our heading. The headings should be descriptive, concise, and formatted in title case, which is why it's capitalized this way. Now, if we go back to the home part of the ribbon, and I select the styles pane here, I have the heading style. So this is the first heading in the paper, so we'll use APA level 1. You can see it's centered and bolded. Now for these subsections, okay, brief summary, all right. Well, this is a subheading of my conflict, so we'll use the next level, APA level 2. For the questions posed by Beer and Packard, we can go ahead and also make that a level 2. Same thing here, we have the reflection on the tribunal team activity. So we'll make that an AP level 1 thing. And then if we're going to have specific things here, we'll call this lessons about justice and mercy. And something you might notice is that I'm not trying to be poetic or anything like that with these titles. I'm trying to be accurate to reflect what has been learned. And to create a clear connection between the heading and the content. Because APA style emphasizes clarity and accuracy over the variety of phrasing. So it's more important in APA style to know what you're trying to say versus it sounding, especially memorable. Now, you might notice I didn't add a heading for introduction. And that's for a very specific reason, because APA style has a rule saying, do not add a heading called introduction, because we see the beginning of your paper and we know implicitly it's the introduction, it's the first part. And so that's kind of what we call a no-duh thing. It would be redundant to have the introduction heading because it is clearly, by being the start, the introduction. Now, not all papers will have a conclusion though, and that's why we want the conclusion to have a heading. But except for that very first one, we want to have, per the instructions, a heading for each prompt. And if it's a sub-bullet here, a sub-prompt, we want to have a subheading. So these are the larger big picture sections, which we format using an APA level 1 style tag. And then the subsections of that we format using an APA level 2. So you can see that we have 2 sections that have subsections within them. All right, let's go back to the slide deck here. So our main objectives today were to understand the CONR webinar series and to also understand the ACU paper template and how that works. And I do recommend that you view or attend our Intro to APA 7th edition webinar. But regardless, let's go ahead and talk about some of the other resources that are available to you. And these are available in every course. So if we look on the navigation, we see we can go to the course homepage and we can go to the modules. But down here we have online tutoring for tutor.com. So one of those resources that we have access to is an institutional subscription to tutor.com. Now, I will very strongly recommend our staff at the Online Writing Center. Not only are we staffed with experts in graduate writing and in APA style, but we also generate a lot of familiarity and subject matter knowledge of the courses in your program. But there might be something where you're working, say, at 2 in the morning and you really want feedback on this fast. And so you can go ahead and every student gets 10 free hours of access at tutor.com, where you could submit a paper for review or schedule a tutoring session right now in real time with someone who will answer questions and give you feedback on your draft. Now, will they have subject matter specifically on APA style? Not necessarily. Will they be familiar with your particular program? No, but they can certainly give you the benefit of a pair of eyes and give you feedback on the writing itself. So it's a very helpful resource, especially if you're working on a very tight turnaround and it doesn't align with availability at the writing center. So wanted to present that as a major resource that is also available to you. So with that, I think it is time for us to bring our introduction to resources to a close and say you are more than welcome to grab a copy of the AP course paper template now. For ease of use, you can view videos for most of our webinars on our YouTube channel. It does slightly lag the main website, but we try and keep that up to date. We also have a blog where we explore various writing related tasks. You can always send us a question directly at onlinewritingcenter@acu.edu, sign up for an appointment, or just browse our website for related resources. So thanks for joining us this evening. Have a good night.